It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
This right here is Car Con Carne. It's a Q101 podcast. I'm James Van Alstyne. Car Con Carne, presented by Easy Automation. Safety and security are things that you and I want, need, and expect. What if you could always come home to a well-lighted house, knowing that you and everyone inside were safe? Or that package you were waiting on, maybe something you ordered from Kickstarter, it's finally arrived, knowing that that was delivered and secured. Embrace the future of smart living. Empower your home with intuitive control. Call my guy Dan at Easy Automation for a free, no-hassle quote. The number's on the screen, 630-730-3728, or visit easy-automation.net. Quick programming note. This episode right here is episode 995. Episode 1000 is mere weeks away, and to celebrate, I'm hosting several live events. I'm recording everything, and those live events will be turned into episode 1000. The next recording is happening at Siren Records on Sunday, October 6th. It is Ike Riley, White Rabbit Object, Show Off, and Steve Silver all appearing on stage at Siren. We're recording the whole damn thing. It is absolutely free. 12 noon, Sunday the 6th at Siren in McHenry. And then 1 week after that, we're at Liars Club, right in the heart of Chicago. Josh Caterer of Smoking Popes, Bellhead, Club Drugs, The Effigies doing an interview, and another surprise on top of that. Episode 1000, more information, carconcarne.com. So here we are, doing the actual episode now. Kingdom Come is a 4-issue DC Comics graphic novel miniseries that came out in the mid-90s. Mark Waid wrote it, Alex Ross envisioned it and painted it, and this epic story continues to ripple not just through the comics industry, but the mainstream. We'll talk about that. It's one of the best-selling Elseworlds comics ever published. It's a study in heroism, morality, generational change, and despite the large cast of characters, this really is a Superman story at its core, where truth, justice, and the American way come in direct conflict with a brutal new world. You hear the word legendary overused to the point of being toothless, but this is truly a legendary comic series. The Legend of Kingdom Come is a new documentary about how Alex Ross's artistic vision reshaped comic art and redefined heroes across generations. It's being crowdfunded right now on Kickstarter, and executive producer?
Yeah.
Executive producer.
Basically, yeah.
Sal Abbinanti joins us outside Gene Jude's, a Chicago area favorite. Not a Chicago favorite. We're not in Chicago. Chicago area favorite. Sal, it is so good to see you. We're talking about these comics right here.
Oh, yeah.
These wonderful, iconic, legendary comics, Kingdom Come.
Yep.
Let's start there. You're doing this Kickstarter, and people just need to search Kingdom Come probably to find it.
The Legend of KingdomCome.com is the official title of the doc.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's start with Kingdom Come. Why are we still talking about this? For those who may not be diehard comic fans, why are we talking about this comic in 2024?
It was in the comic world, whether you're in the comic world or not, Kingdom Come was probably, in my opinion, always been one of the top 5 greatest graphic novels of all time. You had, Return of the Dark Knight and Watchmen and Mouse, but I always felt Kingdom Come was right there. It was right up there. And I've told Alex that in the years. And so when we decided we were going to do a film or wanted to do a doc, I thought, hey, let's do something a little more, put a finer point on it than just do a doc about Alex. Let's do something about Kingdom Come, because the fan base, for whatever reason, every time we would do a signing with Alex, if you looked in the line, 2/3 of the line was holding Kingdom Come. So
sure.
It spoke volumes to the DC fan base, and it still has, rippling effects throughout comics.
And that's hilarious. That many people had Kingdom Come. It's not like Alex stopped working after that. It's not like he stopped turning in groundbreaking.
Absolutely. He did a lot of stuff after. Did Treasury editions of all the major characters.
Yes.
He did Justice. He did Earth X and Uncle Sam and lots of stuff. And but for whatever reason, sometimes, things just stand out. And I've always felt that I knew kind of where the bodies were buried, so to speak, because I was there with him. I was friends with him before we started working together. And I was there when he was, kind of conceiving it, creating it, and putting the ideas together. And so I knew whenever I was at cons or at shows, I would tell some of my Kingdom Come stories, and the fans loved them. So I always thought, hey, there's something, kind of behind the music.
I remember when these comics came out. I always perceived them as a response to the way the comics industry had turned.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
But I sense there's more to it than just that. I mentioned morality.
It was a response to, again, we talked about the, Return of the Dark Knight and Watchmen, and that kind of set the table for Kingdom Come being more of an adult theme. But I think what Kingdom Come spoke to, what kind of helped the fan base really latched onto it was Superman. I mean, Superman was always Alex's guy. That's his favorite character. And so Superman had gone through this, he wasn't cool anymore phase. He was like John Wayne in the 90s, where they gave him long hair and a ponytail, and he's not so cool, and they made him a cyborg, and everybody it was the Image years where everybody had a lot of pockets, and they had gold teeth, and the Hulk had a gun. But Alex was like, no, this guy, he's still the guy. He's still the Mount Rushmore. He is the Mount Rushmore comics, is Superman. Yeah. So you can do something cool with him. So I think that's where he went back and revisited it, and that's what spoke to the fan base so much, to say, wow, Superman is cool.
Superman is cool, and I mentioned the mainstream. The James Gunn directed Superman movie comes out in 2025.
Right.
We've only seen hints of what that's going to be. I am completely excited about this, but what's super exciting is Superman's costume in this movie is lifted straight from the pages of Kingdom Come.
He used the logo. Yeah, Alex redesigned the logo and kind of refined it a little bit, like the Fletcher cartoons version, where it's more of a...
From like the 1930s.
I think so. It's kind of I'm not sure the origins of Alex's design work, but I think he just wanted to simplify it and make it more of a symbol, like it came from Krypton type of thing.
Because the S was always a hard sell as being Kryptonese. Yeah.
Right. But it's going to be in the film, and that's part of what we wanted to talk about in the documentary, is how much of stuff in Kingdom Come has shown up and kind of been used in the DC universe since Kingdom Come.
When did Alex find out that they were using that version for the movie? As much as he's accomplished, I'm sure he freaked out.
You can't keep a secret anymore. I think he's kind of gotten used to it, because they've used a lot of different things. So they've lifted a lot of things from Kingdom Come over the years, like in the Wonder Woman movie, they used his armor, and they've used a lot of different things have shown up in some of the WB shows and in the comics themselves. So I don't think he was too surprised.
Fair.
Yeah.
This particular comic series was also notable for the presence of you.
That was kind of like a blessing and a curse. It was Alex uses photo reference. He uses his friends as models, and at the time I had no inkling of Captain Marvel. I was a Marvel guy. I wasn't a DC guy.
Captain Marvel, people probably know him better today as Shazam.
Captain Marvel, and he's like, hey, are you familiar with Captain Marvel? And I said, yeah, I thought the Marvel one. He goes, no, the other one. And I said, what, the short cape with the sash? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I always thought it was kind of a foolish costume, even though
I've always loved that costume. I've always loved it.
Well, Elvis stole it. That's where Elvis got the short cape from in his outfit. And he's like, hey, would you mind modeling? And I didn't know what that was. And so I thought, so I didn't know how he worked. So you went to his place, he took pictures, and he showed you the storyboards, and that's when I kind of got to know him. We were just friends, but when you saw how serious he was, and you saw the degree of like, no, this was, he laid the book out in tremendously detailed storyboards, that you said, okay, this is the real deal here. This guy's not fooling around. And
so he had made a Shazam costume, or Captain Marvel costume?
I showed up, and he had the first costume was really just like a hospital smock. It did, he was cut in the back, and you put it on in the front, and it had the arms and the lightning bolt. And, you just did a lot of squinting and smiling as Captain Marvel. It's not it's not high art when you're Captain Marvel. Back in the day, I was still working triples, at the China Club. I wasn't too picky. It's not like I got paid or anything, but I had no idea, James, when the book came out. To this day, I don't do a con where half a dozen people aren't having me sign copies of Kingdom Come, as Billy Batson, and I think it's kind of funny, but I never knew I was gonna, be like Len Talbot and be the werewolf for the rest of my life and be cast as Captain Marvel. But it's fine. It could be a lot worse.
Well, there is that full page. I mean, it's iconic. There's one painted page where you first see Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
the bulge.
Yes.
Yeah. That was okay. I remember a lot of that stuff, but it happened so fast. And you got to remember now, when we posed, I didn't see the art for almost a year. So I didn't know what we were doing or what any of the paintings looked like until the book came out. So it was kind of interesting.
So thinking about that character reference way of doing things, did you do that for everyone in that book?
A lot of it, not most. I mean, the main characters, Frank Casey. I mean, we in the documentary, that's part of what we wanted to show, was we got a lot of the models in the documentary, so you could see Frank Casey, who's Superman and Captain Marvel, and some of his other, Tony Akins, who's a Chicago guy, and my brother-in-law Ken Coy's in it. He was Red Robin and different characters. So a lot of the secondary characters were. You'll see a lot of the reference of Chicago is in it. He shot it on, Broadway and Lawrence and Belmont and Clark by the Alley and Chicago Comic. So he used a lot of Chicago as photo reference and a lot of his friends as reference. But so I would say, most of it. So
Mark Waid, who wrote the book, he said never thought people would still be talking about it.
Yeah.
Is he self-deprecating, or do you think he...
No, Mark's in it. Mark's a big part of the doc. He's terrific. Him and Alex, fleshed this out together. I mean, Mark's just as much a part of it as Alex is. It's Alex's baby because, my God, the main thrust of the book is his father. Norm McKay is Alex's dad. And so, no, but I a lot of us felt the same way. We knew it was when it came out, the response was incredible. I mean, it was like a bomb went off. But yeah, like anything else, as we get older, you don't think 25 years later.
Yeah.
When I was in my studio drawing and listening to you on the radio, I didn't think we would be sitting in the parking lot, eating hot dogs and talking about this later.
And I certainly didn't think 25 years ago that people would be talking about me on Q101.
Right.
I mean, same thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I said that the Kingdom Come series is a story of morality, story of good versus evil in many respects. You, in the documentary, or in the trailer, said that the documentary is a story of comics, a story about comics. Yeah, well, we had to have create a doc that we obviously knew the fan base. You had to give them what they wanted. You had to give them these. We did 32 different clips of animation and show the backstory and show the art and show Alex's his process and show Mark's process of the script and all. But you also needed to make a film that people could see as well that weren't hardcore fans. Exactly. So you remember the 90s. The comic business in the 90s was insane. I mean, you could make a doc just about the 90s, the way the comic world it was set on its head with all the all the crazy buying and the death of Superman, and people were buying comics thinking they were going to send their kids to college with them, and they were selling, and some comics were selling in the millions. Independent comic guys were making millions of dollars in the 90s. And so there's a back theme there of what was going on in the comic world in the 90s as well as Kingdom Come. Talk to me, and I'm sure this will be explored in the documentary, but talk to me about the team of Mark Waid and Alex Ross. How do they work together? Well, Alex was a fan of Mark's work and was, kind of fleshing out the story together because he'd worked with Kurt on Marvels before that, and he really was a big name, but Kingdom Come made him, put him in the stratosphere. Yeah. So he contacted Mark, and Mark came into town, and I always thought it was funny that Alex put him up at, he's like, yeah, I remember when we were just friends, and he's like, yeah, Mark is in town, we're working on Kingdom Come, and he put him up at some flea bag on Lincoln Avenue. Oh no, one of those hotels. Yeah, like the Riverside or the Apache, or the Rio. Yeah, and I said, Alex, you got him at the Apache?
I mean, it's like no. I mean, there's nothing there. But
if you can get past the blood on the walls, it's lovely.
Like drugstore cowboy. You know, when you go to those hotels on Lincoln Avenue. Although Hubs is pretty good right there. You know, Hubs has got a solid.
I like the juice.
Yeah, I got a solid souvlaki plate over there. But I'm like, no, man, what are you doing? So we moved them, and they fleshed it out. They worked together. They bounced it back and forth, and we got a lot of what, you know, Mark's process, what Alex's process was going in. And then Alex was off and running. He was creating promotional images right away, and he knew the covers were Norman Rockwell-inspired covers, these huge wraparound covers of all the characters. So it was a labor of love for both of them, because they're huge comic historians, both of them.
Right. That's all I've ever known about Mark Waid, is he just is that encyclopedia.
Yes. And so that was where all those characters and all those Easter eggs came from in the book, of all these, you know, who's the kid of this kid and what other kid. You'll see there's a lot of Easter eggs in Kingdom Come that wouldn't have happened had Alex and Mark not been, you know, such huge, you know, comic historians.
So people who read comics and who know Alex's work know exactly what an Alex Ross comic page looks like. For those who don't, how long does it take Alex Ross to make a page? How long does it take for him to make a prestige format graphic novel?
Alex is a lot about the layouts and the reference and the lighting. And when he gets going on it, but now sequential art takes longer than covers, but I would say on average when he's painting a graphic novel, it's between 10 and 12 pages a month. So, and it's heavy lifting. With Kingdom Come, he was working on it. I remember he was chained to the table. He was working nonstop on it, and it was a grind. It really was.
I'm going to say something that you don't have to react to, but one of the most disappointing things I experience as a comic book consumer is buying a comic book for the Alex Ross cover and then opening it up and it's not Alex Ross's art. And
the old bait and switch.
Yeah, it is totally
Hey, I got burned with a lot of that in the 70s. And, you know, as a kid, I was buying Gil Kane covers, you know, where monsters dwell. And, you know, when you open it up and you're like, whoa, I didn't know Submariner had red hair.
Yeah,
you know, it was
I didn't sign up for this. Yeah.
reprint from the 40s. But, hey, you know.
Thank God that's true. All right, so the Kickstarter wraps up third week of October.
Yeah.
What can people get if they can? This is the fun part for fans. You can buy a part of this. You can be a part of this. This is community at its core.
Well, with us, Kickstarter, when it started, it was a bad rep. People thought of it as, oh, you were just out there begging and this. But what I discovered, it was the opposite. What I discovered during COVID as an indie comics creator is that Kickstarters, and you know this from the indie music scene, there's a tremendous indie scene in crowdfunding and in Kickstarter, whether it's film, whether it's comics, whether it's in, you know, your inventions, whatever it is. And so a lot of companies, IDW and Boom and Brian Polito with Coffin Comics, Todd McFarlane, started to use Kickstarter as a way of the direct conduit between one-to-one from the fan base to the creator, and not have a go-between, a middleman, so to speak. So I found, as an indie guy, when I was putting out my own books through Kickstarter, it was terrific, because you didn't have to go through a distributor, you didn't have to go through Diamond or anybody else, and you could reach the fans and get their interaction, their comments. They're going to let you know. They're not shy about yelling at you, and they're pissed off that they didn't get their bookmarks or whatever it is. And it's also a way for you to kind of provide them with unique items that they can't get any other way.
Right.
You know, they love those stretch goals. They love those novelty coins and foil editions and all the extras that you can get through Kickstarter.
Yeah, the collector's mindset.
And with the film, we discovered it the same way. That I got to be honest, James, when people started to approach me about, hey, are you going to do this on Blu-ray? I thought DVDs and Blu-rays were dead. I had no idea.
Physical media has made a return, especially for independent movies.
I had no idea. So when we researched it was like, no, absolutely not. People still like the tangible edition. So I said, okay, let's do it. I want to start this through Kickstarter. One, you know, to get whole again, because this was my diving in, so to speak. It was like I bought a boat. You know, and you live in Chicago, you could put it on the water like 3 weekends a year.
Yes.
This was buying a boat, making, deciding I want to be an independent filmmaker. And I was all in. It was just basically me. I'm Mr. Howell. on the island, with the trunk of clothes. And so I thought, if I could do this through Kickstarter, and also I'm kind of well versed in Kickstarter through indie comics. And I know that to do a film, we wanted to provide them with all the bells and whistles to do, 90 minutes of additional footage, of additional bonus content that we're going to include in the Blu-ray, and a lithograph package, and, Alex will sign some of them.
Even a movie poster, I think, is
And we did
great...
six movie posters and lots of different
I think
specials.
That's what I pledged.
Yeah, and lots of different,
posters.
Different things that it's like you couldn't get otherwise. And because we DC has been so great that they have kind of, signed off and given us permission to do this, that we're able to give them all the bells and whistles.
I was going to ask about that because one of the levels is a Kickstarter exclusive variant cover. Mm-hmm. How does that work with a publisher like DC?
Well, we're under working with Alex for 25 years now. We're Warner Brothers licensees. We have a Warner Brothers license, where we have a fine art license, which allows us to put up lithographs and fine art that way. So kind of you pay to play, so to speak. So if we're willing to do 500, 3,000 covers, whatever it is, they give you permission. And of course you pay DC for them. So everybody, gets a taste.
It's like when a band does a reissue of an album they put out on a major label. Yeah,
Exactly.
we'll give you the license to do it. You can print X amount.
Exactly.
But
everybody's getting paid.
Yes.
There's no free lunch with when you decide to get into bed
with the Time Warner.
Exactly. Everybody's got to get paid. You can't go outside the reservation for long, or that's where little cease and desist orders show up on your doorstep, and it's like, okay, guys, the party's over.
One of the things I love pledging to Kickstarter campaigns, I mean, everything you just said, that connectedness with the people making the art. I love when a project gets funded, which, by the way, you don't even need to be doing this interview right now because you're well past your funding level, but the more the merrier. Let's get more people getting that cool shit. I love the fact that after it's funded, I never know for sure when that project will be complete and at my house.
Right.
So it's always like Christmas morning when that Kickstarter package arrives.
Order fulfillment, James, is 99% of it. If you want, because Kickstarter's also kind of amended their rules because they've had a few blowbacks over the years of things that never showed up. Now we've had 100% order fulfillment, which we're very proud of. But the film was basically done. We're done. We've just, with the exception of burning it on the Blu-ray. Yeah. We didn't need the Kickstarter campaign to make the film, which is like, good luck. People think that getting the money is like, oh, if you give me the money, I'll be able to, okay, good luck, because we ran into a lot of snags with this film, and I swore never to do a Kickstarter campaign until you're 99%.
That's amazing advice.
Ready to go. Mm-hmm. Because I get a lot of people that come to me, Sal, I want to do Kickstarter. I'm like, are you finished with the project? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well then don't do Kickstarter. And then who's going to fulfill the orders? Do you want 5,000 envelopes showing up on your door? I mean, well, my wife would throw me out, first of all. Second of all, I can't turn my house into Amazon, so you have to have order fulfillment ready to go.
That's a pro tip right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the voices who are on this documentary, talking about the impact of Kingdom Come. You mentioned Todd McFarlane.
Todd was, we spoke with Todd, and Todd could not have been greater. I mean, he was a tremendous interview. We were out in Arizona. We spoke with Todd. He was a big part of my guide in the 90s. He was like Kellogg's, for God's sakes, with Spawn. And then we interviewed Brian Pulido, Coffin Comics, who's, Lady Death. He's got his own niche in comics, Brian Pulido. And Brian is tremendous. Paul Dini, of course, we wanted to speak with because he's a legend in, Batman animated series with Bruce Timm. Mark Waid, of course, Alex.
Bill Sienkiewicz.
We spoke with the Polish Prince, Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean, who's like a god to me.
I agree.
You give him a crayon and a napkin, and he'll make something.
My friend
brilliant.
Dennis and I are still talking about that museum show he did out in the burbs, just like being able to walk through all of his stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So Bill
Sienkiewicz. Bill. Brian. Amanda Conner, Jimmy Palmiotti. I know we got all the models, Frank Casey and Tony Akins and my and me, of course. And in fairness, there were a few people that we really wanted to have that it just didn't work out timing wise and money wise and where they lived and trying to get people together. And then we ran into COVID, which we had to put the doc on ice for 2 years during COVID. But we were fortunate enough to get Alex's father, because Alex's father passed away right after COVID. So, he was like almost 100 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
But we wanted to get Norm McKay in there. We got Norm McKay, Alex's dad, in there, which is kind of jarring when you see him juxtaposed with the artwork. So we tried to focus on, we were fortunate for the people we got versus who, we had a dream list of, and then we didn't get every single one.
I'll be the first to tell you, guest booking is the hardest part of the racket.
Oh, yeah. It's like... Yeah, guest booking is like you're ready to kill yourself. And then we had people that you'd show up at their door and they weren't there. They would get cold feet. And
Really?
Oh, yeah. You had to pivot. And, there's a few people in there that were in there because we had to pivot. And literally just, what are you going to do?
It's not like you're knocking on doors saying, I want you to talk about the election of 2020. We're talking about Alex Ross and Kingdom Come.
Well, people are always on board until it's time to get flop sweat. I'm sure you've had interviews where you get yes answers and you're like, wow, this is going nowhere in a hurry.
I will say, generally, yes. In the car, it's not so bad because when you're sitting here, it's much harder to be a difficult interviewee.
Right.
But also, thinking about the people who are being interviewed, even though they've done millions of interviews as creators, being a comics creator is a pretty solitary...
Yeah, you're right. Most people, during COVID, it didn't change people's lives much at all during comics.
Yeah.
Doing comics because you're home in your studio alone anyway.
So being in front of a camera...
You try to just get them to talk and just, you just start talking and you don't even tell them the camera's on and one thing leads to another. And we started here in town getting a lot of local creators.
Sure.
And then tried to work backwards from there. And then we set up at a few shows. We set up at San Diego and we were able to get some people. We set up at C2E2 and at New York Comic Con, and you try to get the man on the streets reaction to a lot of the fan base at San Diego and that. So you wanted kind of a cross section to make it interesting, but you also wanted the different points of view. You didn't want just this how great everything is. You just kind of wanted a reaction.
I was thinking about what you were saying about Blu-ray and physical media. This is physical media.
Yeah.
I can't imagine reading this on a tablet or a phone. I feel like for comics in general, I'd rather read.
I'm with you. I believe comics are a textile kind of experience where I have to have it in my hand and look at it. I've tried the iPads and to read. I just can't do it. It just doesn't work. But look, my kids. That's their life is their phone and their iPad. So what do I know?
I love whether it's records or comics. I love having it, putting it on the shelf.
Yeah.
I loved knowing that I was going to see you today. I'm like, I'm going to go to the K's on my wall and pull out these 4 comic books.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember when I bought those. It was a time. It was a very, very special time in comics in the 90s.
Because I was on board with Marvels, and then when I knew this was coming, I couldn't wait.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized. It had a tremendously effective ad campaign before it came out, which we talk about a little bit in the doc, of them showing these images of the Kingdom Come kind of thing, where it was just smoke and very, very ominous, and it was like, wow, when you knew this was coming, it was like, wow, this is going to be something special.
I think any artist creator can look back at something they created and see imperfections or things they would have rather done over. Do Alex or Mark have any of those thoughts?
Well, it's funny. He doesn't talk about it in the film, but I remember when Alex was working on the Kingdom Come pages, he was working at home and he was sending them to DC, and then he had noticed, or he'd seen, that he didn't like the proportions on some of the figures that he painted. So he went to New York and set up in a hotel room, and he actually repainted like 4 pages because he thought Superman was too short or the figures were too small. And I thought he was crazy, but that was Alex just saying, hey, I need to kind of amend some of these things.
Did he stay somewhere nicer than the Apache in Chicago?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he did. It's not much of a stretch to get away from like the Oh My over there. The Apache, the Oh My, the Riverside, and the Hidden Cove.
Oh, the Hidden
right
Cove.
there.
I did some serious underage drinking right there.
Yeah, right by the taco barn used to be right there.
Are those Taco Loco, I think?
Taco
Yeah,
Loco, you're right.
The Crazy Taco.
Yes, and the Hidden Cove, and it was like the Double Bubble on Broadway, and in Granville.
Thinking about Kingdom Come in 2024, we're looking at the comics. The way comics are consumed, by and large, is graphic novels. I feel like there will always be a reprinting or a reissue or a something of Kingdom Come.
Yeah. Well, the anniversary's coming, which is scary. The 25th. And it's just one of those things where it has been in perpetual reprint over the years.
It's like Back in Black by AC/DC.
Yeah, no, it's just one. It should be reprinted, and I love when you talk to people or read comments on social media of like, never heard of it, just read it, love it. I think it holds up today more than ever before. I mean, no offense to today's comics, but I really do believe it holds up.
Oh, it absolutely does.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see that it's in reprint, and we're really excited that DC has been, giving us their blessing with the stock, because it was kind of there were really only two forces that I was worried about. One was Alex, and the other was DC. If
Those are some big forces.
You didn't get the blessing there, it was not going to go well. I was going to wind up being, I was going to have to be Michael going into the restaurant, coming out of the bathroom, with the gun. So it was just one of those things where I was a little nervous.
The Legend of Kingdom Come is on Kickstarter. It is through the third week of October. You can be a part of it. You can get thanked on the website. You can get the movie posters. You can be an executive producer for a princely sum. There are all sorts of options for all sorts of
whatever you want, or just buy the digital download.
Yeah.
You don't have to,
which you'll see before everyone else.
You don't have to dive all the way in.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what your financial situation, if you're interested in this,
Yes.
you can have access to it.
It's an independent film.
Yeah.
And if we would look, do we want to do something with it after this? Yes, but that's a whole nother conversation that we have to explore afterwards to see what we can do with this. It's not like we were waiting for a knock at the door. It's not like we had our big Netflix deal or anything like that. And if you want to be an indie filmmaker, sure, there's people that like independent films, but like independent comics, people don't go to Netflix for independent film. They go there for Reacher and for whatever.
For true crime. That's it.
Whatever, exactly. Yeah. Whatever the flavor of the month is, the average person who goes on their streaming services is not looking for indie films. So when you make an indie film, you got to be ready for that audience.
To close, this is a story about comics. For someone, again, who might not know about this and is kind of curious based on what we talked about, what will they walk away from? Or what walk away with from watching this?
It's a great story, and it's a great doc, and it's not a deep dive into just comics. It's about what was going on in the 90s, how this, the comic world was being shaped by society and by culture at the time, why this is such a pivotal work. It's cool there's a lot of cool stories of what kind of the making of and what was the guts and what was where the bodies are buried, so to speak. So you don't really need to be a fan of comics. Of course, we give the fan base what they want. But my wife liked it, which kind of shocked me because she's not a comic person at all.
But I think you just said it. I think the secret to a great documentary, people love to see that curtain pulled back. No matter what industry it is, what world it is, having that kind of access and those honest, unvarnished insights.
It's a labor. This was a labor of love. I work with my director Ramzi Atassi, who's a great filmmaker, independent filmmaker, and it's all on the screen. Every dime, every craft service table, every bad lunch, every carrying the equipment through the airports, it's all there on the screen.
I can't wait to see it. I'm so glad after 5 years it's finally.
Oh yes, yes. I just want I keep telling everybody, I just want the baby, not the labor. I can't take it anymore. The labor pains are killing me.
I understand. Sal, I can't wait to see it. Congrats on getting it to the finish line.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.